So, do we have any questions left for Chaitanya Dasi?
I think we
From
don't. Any left? I will double check.
There's a lecture in the early on in the movement, and someone asked Prabhupada a question about separation. And when he heard the question, separation from Radha and Krishna, because it's such a deep subject and the devotees were so new, he said, "This is a very nice question." I was very happy to get the question. And I was very happy to answer it, even though they couldn't understand much. So when we talk about separation from Krishna, we're not talking about something unhappy, but we're talking about just an aspect of love. So as long as we see it as an aspect of love, and then we'll start to understand something about it, better about it. Okay. Anything left over? Otherwise, we can start with where we left off reading.
Nothing on my record. So
okay.
Devotees
So
had any.
You want to put up the where we left off, what we're reading?
Yes.
Krishna Prashta Bhutalesh. Saraswati Devi. Recess Sunyadi Christianist. Okay. So if you want to follow in English, it's in the chat. This Gaudiya Sampradaya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's, in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's descendants, our line of God realization is that separation, feeling of separation. This is 1968. What is Prabhupada saying? He's saying that, without saying it, he's saying that feeling separation is the highest emotion, the highest spiritual emotion one can feel, the most intense spiritual emotion is to be missing Krishna or missing God. Like, we're also missing him, but our missing is different. We're also missing other things, right? What are you feeling separation? Well, I wish I had $1 million, so I'm feeling separation from that. I wish I was the most famous person in the world, so I'm feeling separation from that. I wish I had a Rolls Royce, I'm feeling separation from that. Like that, but that's not what's being referred to. For a conditioned soul, we do feel separation. And I guess the best way we can understand it is how sometimes, well, I explained this before. Krishna is absolute. So thinking of Krishna means Krishna is present. We haven't realized that. It's going to take time and lots of purification to fully realize that Krishna is present. when we think about him. And that, I mean, it's like, it's such a foreign concept to us, isn't it? That God is completely present, fully 100% present in thinking of him. And we are thinking, oh, I would like to see Krishna, I would like to meet Krishna. And then we hear from Shastra that Krishna is present just by thinking of him, or by chanting, or by hearing about him. Okay, so we don't have that realization, but just hold that idea. If Krishna is present by thinking about him, then the more intense the thinking or the feeling that we have while we're thinking, the more intense the presence, the deeper the connection. So separation creates more intense. You know the word samadhi. You know this word samadhi is a very interesting word. Sama means equal and di means consciousness. So samadhi is a word that's used when the mind, when you come to this point where your mind is completely focused on Krishna. Samadhi is actually, it's a word used in yoga, and it describes that there's different kinds of meditation. Dhyana, you've heard the word dhyana, Dhyan, dhyana. Dhyana means meditation, but dharana also means meditation, and samadhi also means meditation, but they refer to different levels of focus. So in samadhi, what you're focused on, you're not focused on anything else, only that. In dharana, you're focused, but you lose it. And in dhyana, you focus and lose it even more. You're focused on it, but you forget, you come back. But in samadhi, like if you're really hungry and you want to eat something, maybe that's the only thing you think about is that, what I would like to eat. There's no other thought, your mind doesn't waver. So samadhi is, so the samadhi, okay, I'm thinking of Krishna, and then in separation, because I'm feeling separation, there's absolutely nothing else. It's intensified samadhi. That's all I'm thinking of. So that thinking of Krishna is intensified when the devotee's feeling Krishna's absence. Even Krishna might be with you. You could actually feel he's not there, or he's going to leave. And if you're feeling Krishna is going to leave, you're now thinking of him more intensely. And then when that focus is 100%, then you're intensely focused on Krishna now. Is present in your thinking, then if he leaves, he's actually present. That sounds weird, doesn't it? Krishna is present in your thinking, and then Krishna goes away, and he's actually more present with you than when he's present with you, because the separation created more intensity in the emotion and the thinking. It's like samadhi on steroids. Does that make sense? Like, you're all thinking, yeah, it makes sense, but my samadhi is on ice cream, or Netflix or something. Yeah, that's the problem. That's where our samadhi is. But everything in the material world is a perversion, right? So whatever we ever get focused on in our mind, it's only because you love something. You cannot think constantly of something if you don't love it. Or maybe we could say, or if you don't hate it. Maybe you could think more if you hate something sometimes. It's more intense. You have to really love it or really hate it. Let's just go with the love part, because that relates to what we're talking about. Sometimes we say, I always want to think of Krishna. and I never want to forget him. And so, of course, we say you can see Krishna as the sun and the moon and the air and the water, and you can see Krishna everywhere in nature. So that's an impersonal form, you could say. But if you want to think of Krishna all the time in the personal feature, we can try through practice, but factually, without loving Krishna, how can you think of something all the time if you don't love it? Like, how is that possible? It's a very if I say, okay, I would like you to think of a butterfly. Okay, now try to think of a butterfly. How long do you think you could hold that thought in your mind? 30 seconds. Now, if you ever saw a butterfly that had real diamonds on it and real gold and emerald eyes and had an effulgence and could spin around and do amazing things and take on new shapes and become a monster back, then you could probably think of that longer than 30 seconds because it's more attractive, right? So now think of, what if I told you to think of something that's the most attractive thing in the creation? Oh, that would be easy, don't you think? Think of it all the time. That's Krishna. But without love, we don't see him as the most attractive. So we're practicing to think of Krishna in so many ways, but to have that samadhi constant, there has to be love. And then when there's love and Krishna goes away and you feel like you're losing Krishna, he's leaving Vrindavan, he's going somewhere. Even if he's not, but you feel it, then your thinking becomes more intense. And then your experience of Krishna becomes more intense because Krishna is non-different from your thoughts. He's in your mind, he's in your heart, right? Isn't it when someone you love goes away, you can sing a song, you say, you may have gone away, but you haven't left my heart. There's probably a million songs like that, right? Even one of Krishna's friends said that to him. He said, Krishna, I'm stronger than you because I've got you in my heart and you can't get out. I'm holding you in my heart. You can't get out. That means I'm stronger than you are. So, so love and separation is glorified because it intensifies the love. It intensifies the thinking and it intensifies the emotion. And so externally, it may appear to be something painful, but internally, it's something very sweet. Isn't that interesting? That's kind of the essence of what we're talking about. So just so you have that as a framework, as a context, and when we read, it'll probably make more sense. Okay. So Prabhupada's saying separation he's saying our line, our teachers, our acharyas, our gurus, this is what they teach. And what Prabhupada means is, he says they teach that we should cultivate feelings of separation. That's like where love of Krishna is going in this direction that we should cultivate separation, like cultivate it, like we should try to feel it. Of course, you have to love Krishna first, but in other words, he's saying that, well, let's give an example. Lord Chaitanya came and he was in the mood of Radharani, and Radharani experienced intense feelings of separation from Krishna. And so he was also experiencing the same thing. He wanted to experience what she was experiencing. So if separation were such a difficult or bad thing, why would he come to experience it and then just suffer? But he came to experience what she's experiencing, and he didn't come to suffer. he wanted to know, what is this pleasure that she is getting? And so he got the pleasure by experiencing separation. Now, externally, if you read the stories about Lord Chaitanya, it kind of looked like he was going crazy in pain, in separation. But it was actually intense form of love. So, if this is just a philosophical concept for us, that the highest aspects of love of God are cultivated in separation. Feeling separation because you are separated from Krishna, or feeling that Krishna will be separated from you, that you will lose his sight, that you can't be with him, all of this, it creates intensity. And so keeping this in mind, when you read Krishna book, you will see this kind of emotion comes up. Anyway, bhakti is all about emotion. And all the emotion we experience has its origin in the emotions between Krishna and his devotees. And ultimately we can say all that emotion we experience has its origin in Krishna. So it's not just that Krishna's devotees feel separation from him, he feels it, he misses his devotees also. And just like often devotees would write Prabhupada and say, I miss you, Prabhupada. I'm always thinking about you. I miss you. And Prabhupada said, yes, I am always thinking about you. So feeling separation materially, it's different. And we're trying to graduate so that we can learn how we can experience separation in a good way, in a way that nourishes us. And we were talking about separation from the devotees, separation from the spiritual master. So we're trying to learn how to cultivate that in a way where it is helpful, it intensifies us, it makes us stronger. And that's something we have to deal with, because we're not always with devotees, we're not always with our spiritual master physically. So we're trying to understand what are the emotions and feelings that we can experience even in separation, and can they even be stronger? Or maybe stronger is not the best word, but can they be equally as beneficial as being in his presence? And how to do that. That's what we want to learn. Okay, so let's read. Feeling of separation, worship of Krishna by feeling of separation is better than the worship by directly meeting. And it's called Vipralamba Seva. And that, as we just explained, it's better because it's deeper. The feelings are more intense. So now let's talk about another concept. Why is it better? Well, what is the thing that pleases Krishna most? The thing that pleases him most is our love. So the more love we have for him, the more he's pleased, the happier he is. So separation increases the love, and therefore it increases pleasure to Krishna. It increases Krishna's pleasure. So if we can make Krishna happy, then our life is perfect. And just yesterday I heard this story. This devotee was learning how to cook some sweets that Krishna likes. Probably some milk sweets. I forget the details. But she said to Prabhupada, I'm learning how to cook these sweets. And Prabhupada said, that's very good. He said, you learn how to cook them perfectly, exactly the way Krishna wants them, and offer them to Krishna and your life will be perfect. Wow. What did Prabhupada mean? He meant if you can do something with so much devotion and so much love that Krishna is pleased, that's it. Perfect. You've reached it. That's it. Like, what more? What more could you want than that? Isn't that sweet? We think, oh, I have to do some like huge, big thing, Maybe I should open a temple. Oh, that's nice. Why not? But maybe you can't do that. Probably most of us can't. So what does that mean now? Well, maybe I could do something to give Krishna pleasure. Some little thing, whatever it is. Yeah. So going back to this idea that the goal is to love Krishna, the more the love, the better. The more separation, the more the love, therefore, the better. Does that make sense? And just separation makes more, the love gets greater. And I've often said something which I find is one of the most beautiful ideas within our philosophy, is that Krishna knows that we are far from him and that we have to learn how to love him and serve him, and that after millions of lifetimes of loving and serving everything but him, it's going to take time to learn how to love him and develop that love. So Krishna says, here, this is what we're going to do for you now. We're going to send somebody, my representative. He's going to walk on the earth, and you can love him just like you would love me, and he will take your love and he'll give it to me. And you will become purified by giving your love to him. And he's easy to love because he walks in front. It's obviously easier to love someone who walks in front of you, who you can talk to and engage with, than Krishna, who is transcendental, and we're not completely purified enough to perceive Krishna as deeply as we need to properly love him. So there were people off the street who met Prabhupada who fell in love with him just by looking at him. Saw him, they started crying. It was like Prabhupada was their spiritual master from another lifetime, and then they met up again, and instantly there was this connection. And at that point, the devotee would say, I want to be your disciple, just like right after meeting him. You might think, oh, that's kind of fanatic, sentimental. Was the person crazy? Could say that, but in most cases, no. It was like, I've just met God in this person, like he's carrying God. And I can serve this person, even though I may not be qualified to serve God, I'm not completely pure, I can serve this person. So that's Krishna's arrangement. And then this talk we're having about separation from Krishna, which is such a high topic, and as I said, requires very, very deep advancement in Krishna consciousness to experience it. That separation can be experienced between the guru and disciple, or between the Vaishnavas. And so that's Krishna's mercy on us, that we get a little taste of all of this through service of senior devotees, and it's so nice and so purifying. That's the one beautiful thing about our philosophy. Like I've often said also, having been in the movement early on and seeing the intensity of the devotion that was offered to Prabhupada, it was like incredible to see young devotees with so much devotion. But that's the nature this arrangement Krishna makes. Well, here, I'll send my pure devotee, you can serve him. When you're purified by serving him, he will connect you. You will be able to serve me. Of course, through him we serve Krishna, but you'll eventually purify enough that you can see me. So, so I saw very, very young devotees that very, very deep attachment to Prabhupada right from the beginning. And they were willing to give so much, and that was Krishna's arrangement. Otherwise, the concept of Krishna, God, it's, what is God? Where does he live? That is more ambiguous. But Prabhupada is there, and this intense desire to serve is there. There's a verse in Bhagavatam, I think it was by I'm not sure if it was by Prahlad Maharaj but it may have been Prahlad Maharaj. He said, as far as Krishna, I don't know him. Because how can you know Krishna? He's unlimited. But he said, but I do know my spiritual master. He said, Krishna, maybe that will take a long time to completely know him and connect fully with him, but I know my spiritual master. So that's a divine arrangement. Okay. So we'll go on reading. The one instance of their absorption in Krishna consciousness is explained that when Krishna was going on the pasturing ground, the gopis were crying at home. Why? They were thinking that Krishna's body, Krishna, when he was a little boy, he was given the calves because he lived in a cowherd village. So when he was like 5 or 6, they said, okay, you can take the calves out to pasture. So in the morning, he would go out with his friends and they would take the calves to pasture. And then he was older, he would take older cows. But he would always walk barefoot. And so now you'll understand. They were thinking that Krishna's body is so delicate, so soft, that when we take his lotus feet and place it on our breast or chest, we think our chest is hard for him. So Krishna's walking in the forest. There's so many particles of stones. They are pricking. How much Krishna is feeling pain. This thinking caused their crying. How Krishna is feeling pain. And the whole day they will think of Krishna like that. And when Krishna will come back from the pasturing ground, then they will be relieved that Krishna has now come back. That was their business. Now, this sort of thinking of Krishna does not require any riches or any high parentage or any beauty or any education. So we have to develop such Krishna consciousness. This Gaudiya Sampradaya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's descendants, our line of God realization is that separation, feeling of separation. Not that we have God, Krishna within our hand. No, the feeling of separation, worship of Krishna by feeling of separation is better than the worship by directly meeting. Vipralamba seva. Vipralamba means separation. So this is just an example, and Srimad Bhagavatam is so beautiful because it gives examples of devotees expressing their love to Krishna. Like if you talk about something, you say, well, let me give an example. Okay, well, we're talking about love of God. So then let's say, well, can you show me what it looks like? Everybody talks about love of God. Well, show me what it looks like. Like, show me someone who loves God. I want to see what it looks like. Like, what do they do? I mean, how do they think? Are they out? This person loves God and he's out on the golf course playing golf. Is that it? Like, what is it? What do they do? Are they down on the beach sunbathing, with two girlfriends, with his wife and his two girlfriends? Is that like, what does it look like? So Srimad Bhagavatam, it Melissa, you're guilty, Melissa. Can we mute? Well, can we just mute Melissa and not mute everybody else? Possible. Anyway. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is beautiful because it's not theoretical about love. It's okay, here's an example. You want to know what love of God is? You will see it through the example of someone who loves him, not some philosophical idea. Right? You know this, I think a lot of you know the story. It's such an interesting story. Krishna Krishna was in Mathura, which is outside of Vrindavan, and he needed to send a message to the gopis in Vrindavan. And he couldn't go. He had various reasons why he couldn't go. So he needed someone to go. And he thought, Uddhava is the perfect person to go. But he also thought, it will be good for Uddhava to go because when he goes, he's going to meet the residents of Vrindavan, and their love for him is greater than anyone Uddhava has ever met, so that he is going to understand. This way Uddhava can understand. Like have you ever met a devotee who's very Krishna conscious? And when you see, and you kind of become acquainted with how that devotee lives and what they do, and then you think, oh, this is what it's like when you're more Krishna conscious. You ever had that experience? Like, oh, I just heard about this devotee, and every day they get up at this time, and then they do this, then they do that. And like, I don't do that. I never thought of doing that. That's really good. So like sometimes we can't see what the next level of our bhakti is until we're around somebody who's on that level. Like you could read about it, right? Krishna consciousness means A, B, and C. But when you see somebody doing something on a higher level, then you think, oh yeah, I didn't even think I could be doing that. Or I didn't understand. Look at how that devotee is, when he's chanting so deeply. I can just look at his face. And my face doesn't look like that when I chant. My face looks like I just ate some bitter medicine or something. But when he's chanting, look at his face. He's like, so you could see there's so much devotion, or her face. There's so much, you can see so much emotion in the face. And think, why when I chant, it's not in my face? Oh, I must be doing something different. I must be chanting differently. Let me talk to that devotee. Prabhu, gee, what are you feeling? What are you thinking when you chant? Well, when I chant, I think every mantra is a flower, and I build an altar in my heart, and Krishna's on the altar, and then I'm offering each mantra as a flower at his feet, and you think, oh, that's amazing meditation. I never imagined that kind of meditation. So by being with that devotee, it's like it opens you up. Oh, yes. This happens all the time if you associate with more advanced devotees. They'll say something, and it's like coming from another planet, and you realize, oh, I don't think like that. I don't have that realization. That's really deep, and it causes you to start thinking, looking at Krishna consciousness differently. So if you just have God, if you just have Krishna, but you don't have the devotees' devotion to Krishna that you can examine, that you can look at, and you can study like a specimen. Here's a specimen. Here's a pure devotee. How do they relate to Krishna? It's very difficult to understand what love of Krishna is, right? Like how do you define it, you know? So when Krishna sent Uddhava to Vrindavan, Krishna thought, Uddhava is with me, but his devotion to me cannot grow beyond where he is now. But if he goes to Vrindavan and associates with devotees who have more devotion, then he will see that higher level of devotion and his devotion will increase. Isn't that interesting? Such an interesting concept that one would logically think, well, you well, let's just go see God. That should solve the whole problem, right? If I see God, then poof, I'll love him. And, no, but it actually is see the devotee of God, see that devotee serving him, serving Krishna, and that's how your love will grow. So, yeah. So, as I was saying, in the Bhagavatam, we have examples of devotees' devotion. And here Prabhupada's giving one example of the gopis. Okay. So now we're taking this idea. What is love of God? Ask someone on the street, what is love of God? Well, what does that mean? You'll get a lot of answers, some probably good answers, and probably a lot of strange answers, because most people won't have a clear idea of it. And if you ask a devotee, if they gave this example, say, what a love of God is? Well, love of God is when God goes out with his cows barefoot. You probably don't want to say this on television because they'd probably throw you off. When God goes out barefoot with his cows, love of God means you're thinking, oh, he's walking on the ground barefoot. I can't tolerate this pain that he's going through. How can I bear that? I can't tolerate it. I'm thinking of him constantly. So that's why Prabhupada gives that example. Okay, so I'll take your question since it's so Anuradha, what is the right move when thinking in Krishna? If he is present, should we bow down and pray? Well, there's a story. It depends on your level of advancement, and it depends on your relationship. For us, because we're practicing, bowing down is very important for us, because as conditioned souls, we want everyone to bow to us, and we don't want to bow to anybody to one degree or another. I don't want to generalize, but that in general, maybe if you're raised Catholic, bowing down is like you get down on your knees in church. But in many religious traditions, and especially if you're not very religious or spiritual, bowing down is uncommon, right? Bowing down to another person. I mean, we're bowing down to money, fame, sex, all these things. We just don't realize it. But, bowing, can you imagine Donald Trump bowing down to somebody? Putin bowing down? It's not within the DNA of a conditioned soul to just naturally bow down. So the reason we bow down is to recognize that God is great and we're not God. That we belong down and he's up. We belong at his feet. So that's why you'll see when a devotee is thinking of their guru, and the devotee is offering prayers to Krishna, they'll be like this because they're bowing. Even just this is a kind of bow. They're not like this. Om Jnana Timirandasya. No, it's like this. Om Jnana Timirandasya. That's we're going at the feet. The humility of a devotee is that They're not trying to be great, they're trying to be small. And that is very difficult for those with big egos, because the big ego wants to be big, obviously. And the goal of a Vaishnava is to be little, just to be at the feet of their guru, just somehow or other, just a small servant. And from the material perspective, small servant sounds like you clean the toilet, basically, or sweep the street. That doesn't sound fun, right? So you should just be an insignificant servant. Oh no, what am I going to do? Clean have to go to the school and wash the floor. Is that what you were saying? But in devotional service, that if it's washing the floor in Krishna's temple, that could be your highest ecstasy ever. So bowing down, yes, for us, bowing down is very important, because we're practicing to learn humility, and learning humility, I can speak from my own experience, is a slow process and not always fun on the way. Right? Sometimes it's not fun at all, because bruised egos, they do hurt. Sometimes they're severely painful. And when you have no false ego, then it can't be bruised. And then you're just happy to be a little piece of dust at the feet of Krishna. It's just like this. I'm always with Krishna. And Krishna will bow down to you also. Like he doesn't have, he's God, but he has no false ego. So he'll also bow to his devotees, which is, it's funny, because we have this saying, when someone's proud, we say they're playing God. But the funny thing is, God is not proud. So if your synonym for pride is playing God, it's the wrong synonym. But we use it that way, but it's not correct. So now there's a story of a devotee named Bamsi Das Babaji. Bamsi Das Babaji lived, I think, towards the end of the 1800s. And he was known as what is known as avadut. Avadut means he was so transcendental, it looked like he was not in touch with this plane. He was, okay, avadut means you're way up there. You're so high up there, you can't really function. You don't really function on the material plane. So that means he's a very elevated devotee. And he would deal with Krishna he would talk to Krishna and deal with his deity and like that, with no reverence at all, just like he was a friend. And some boys, there's a story, some boys in the village were harassing him. And he saw that as Krishna sending these boys to harass them. And so he would just speak to Krishna and said, if you don't stop sending these boys, I'm going to tell Mother Yasoda that you're sending boys to harass me. So he had a different relationship. Maybe you don't understand that, and that's okay. It's just to show that he was not practicing Krishna consciousness. He realized that he had a friendship relationship with Krishna. And so he really wasn't in this world. He was living in the spiritual world, although physically it looked like he was here. So he wasn't practicing bhakti, so he didn't have to bow down. Like Krishna has fights with his friends, and sometimes Krishna wins the fight. Like that. I mean, sometimes the friends win the fight. Vishwas is saying, is that the reason he never left the gopis? No, he left the gopis. He left the gopis when he was 8 years old. There's a lot of reasons why he did. But the reason Krishna left Vrindavan, he was only 8. He left Vrindavan, and he knew when he leaves Vrindavan, the love of the people of Vrindavan will grow in separation. So yeah, that was one of many reasons. Not the only reason, but there's one of many. And he could have gone back, but he didn't. And I mean, eventually he went back, but he thought if he would go back and leave again, they would die in separation. I mean, there are other reasons. There's so many, Kamsa was trying to kill Krishna. And so Kamsa was hiring people to try to kill Krishna. So if Krishna was in Vrindavan, then these demons, these asuras who were trying to kill Krishna were all coming and disturbing the people of Vrindavan. So Krishna thought, I have to leave Vrindavan because there's too much disturbance here. And then he left Vrindavan, and then immediately his parents, Vasudeva and Devaki, said, Krishna, you're 8 years old, you never went to school. So we should, because Krishna was going to go back to Vrindavan, but they said, no, you should go to school. So he went to school, and then after that, then what's his name? Jarasandha then he was sending all these also attacking, and Krishna thought, I can't go back to Vrindavan. It'll be too difficult because these wars and fights and demons are going to come to Vrindavan. So anyway, yeah. So Kavita says, we're talking about association. Amarendra, I know Amarendra, Adi Gadadhar Prabhu, I don't know. So she's saying, when you get association with these advanced devotees, you kind of gives you a glimpse of Krishna consciousness, like on a different level than you have. That you may not be able to access that level just by your own chanting and your own study. Because by your own chanting and your own study, you only get your own realization, but you won't get the realization that someone else has, right? So by being with someone else, you get to see their devotion, which is different, or, like sometimes when I'll go to the temple and it would be taking darshan and we'll be looking at the deities, and I'll be thinking, the devotee next to me is probably seeing something I'm not seeing or feeling something I'm not feeling. So sometimes I'll turn to them and say, what are you seeing? Or what do you feel? What are you feeling? I want to know what you're seeing and feeling, because it could be different from what I'm seeing and feeling. So by their association, I'm looking at the deity, but I get to see the deity from the way they're seeing the deity. Or the same thing you can ask the devotee. So what do you experience when you chant? What do you experience with kirtan? What do you experience when you're reading Prabhupada's books? What's your realization? I want to know, because I'm sure you have realizations I don't have. And it's a fact, isn't it? And that's why it is said, try to get association with more advanced devotees, because the more advanced, not that we run away from, oh, Prabhu, you're not advanced enough, I don't want to talk to you. Not like that. I have a little meter here. It calculates your bhakti, and my standard is a 7 or 8, and you're only at a 5, so forget you. It's not like that. But if you can get association of very elevated devotees, then yes. Then you're fortunate. And the other thing it does is, have you ever been in Maya and not noticed it until you associated with a more advanced devotee, and then you realized, I thought I was doing fine till, why did you have to show up? I was doing fine until you showed up. Now by looking at you, I realized that I'm not doing well at all. You've ruined my day. Isn't that interesting? That experience. But we need that. I was doing a service once, and I went during that time. I was doing you might have heard, if you went to the Aspuja, you heard Mother Bhumi speak, and she was saying that we were together in San Diego. And what actually happened was, I was a Sankirtan leader, but as I told you, there were only 2 men and 8 women. And the men were just kind of self-sufficient. They didn't really need my help. And we had 8 women or 10 women or something. So most of my time was taking care of them. And then sometimes we would travel 5, 6, and they wanted a man. They didn't want to do it alone, so I would go. So I did that for about 6 months. And then And then I went to Mayapur Festival in 1978, and then I stayed in a room with like 4 other devotees and like that. And so and I thought, after doing that for a week, I thought, it's not so healthy. I was just me, nothing against women, but I need men association also. And so until I got it, I didn't really realize that I was missing that. So sometimes you get in a situation, or you get with devotees that are, and the situation is very, very good for you, or the devotees are very, very good for you, and you realize, oh, I really need this. I was really missing this, right? I did, and sometimes I didn't even know I needed this till you showed up. Yeah. Like I have god brothers like who will glorify something about bhakti, or glorify Prabhupada in a way that is really special. And then I realized, oh, like he's accessing some part of Krishna consciousness in some way that I'm not. This is like, oh, okay. So what am I doing wrong? What do I need to be doing? Like that. At the Vyas Puja, our godbrother Havi spoke, and he, for those of you who heard, he was saying, when we were young devotees, we used to go out to college campus and we would do kirtan. And he said I was doing kirtan, he was doing it also. And he had learned the bhajans of Prabhupada. He had learned to play them, or he didn't learn, he taught himself. He's a genius musician, so he just hears something and then he just plays it. So he could play Prabhupada's bhajans exactly to the minute detail the way Prabhupada played it, every nuance, exactly. In the singing, in the melody, everything. And so we go on the campus and he would play a Prabhupada bhajan just like Prabhupada played it. And he would say, this bhajan, the way Prabhupada sings, it's like his heart is breaking when he's singing this bhajan. His voice is cracking. You can just feel it. I'm like, you can feel it. I never felt that. And it's like, oh, it made me realize that I wasn't hearing that like he was hearing that. I wasn't hearing the bhakti in Prabhupada's voice the way Hubby was hearing it. And so just by him saying it, it was like, oh, I'm asleep at the wheel. What's going on? You know that saying, Kantari, asleep at the wheel? It's like you're driving a car and you're falling asleep. You don't notice it. You're like, so it's like I'm not asleep at the wheel is like say I'm not present. I'm not present to something. I'm not aware of it. So I remember that distinctly. This is 1973, so we're talking 50 years ago. I remember him singing this bhajan on campus because I never heard a devotee play Prabhupada's bhajans exactly the way Prabhupada played it. And so he was playing it, but he was like feeling it like Prabhupada was feeling it. And so I thought, oh, okay, this was not part of my connection to that song. Yeah, like sometimes you'll have class on bhajan, so the speaker will help you go deeply into the bhajan, like you didn't. That speaker went deeply so that you could go deeply. And now you can go deeply because they went deeply, but on your own, you couldn't. So if you want to understand what separation from Krishna is, you understand it through the gopis, through Radharani, through Lord Chaitanya. And you understand it. And if you don't understand anything, you just understand this is the highest form of love of Krishna. When a devotee is separated from Krishna, and that's all. There's only Krishna. There's nothing else. It's just, where's Krishna? Where's Krishna? Or how can Krishna? I can't tolerate the pain Krishna's feeling. Krishna, there's nothing in their head but Krishna. And if there's nothing in your mind and heart but Krishna, that's called samadhi. You're fully Krishna conscious. And that kind of feeling that the gopis have, that you can't have it until you love Krishna. And so here's the bad news, everyone. Fasten your seatbelt. I have some bad news for you. When you finally love Krishna, you're going to be in a lot of pain because you're going to be feeling the pain of separation. Where is Krishna? I can't take it. This material world, I'm feeling intense separation. I just want to be with Krishna. But here's the good news. Even though it's painful, it's the sweetest pain you'll ever experience. So you can call this class sweet pain. Right, sweet pain. We're all setting ourselves up for sweet pain in the future. If you keep chanting Hare Krishna, you're going to experience intense pain, which is intensely sweet. Unbearable pain, but unbearably sweet. Hare Krishna. I can't say really much more about that because beyond this, we have to experience it. This is all like very theoretical, isn't it? But at least if we have the theoretical, then when we hear the pastimes of devotees feeling separation, we'll have more of an insight of what's going on. Okay. So this is a great question, Hari Bhakti. Krishna is complete. How can he miss anyone? Yeah, Krishna is Atmarama, which means he's self-satisfied. And then you see Krishna hankering, feeling, Krishna is also feeling separation, as we mentioned, feeling separation. And well, another part of your question, Hari Bhakti, is how can he feel separation? But Krishna wants the love of his devotees. He doesn't have it. I thought he was Atmarama, but he doesn't have the love of his devotees. And one of the answers that we can give, of course, the standard answer is it's if I were to give a material example, it's like, can a person who's self-satisfied not want something? Is that like I'm totally self-satisfied, I just sit home, I chant in my cave, but I think, Hari Bhakti, I'd like to see you, or Hari Bhakti, we have to work on this project, I want to talk about it. And Hari Bhakti says, why would you want to talk to me? You're self-satisfied. It's like they exist simultaneously. For example, there's a prayer of Prahlad Maharaj where he says, I'm absorbed in Krishna consciousness and I'm happy because I'm absorbed. But I'm not happy because people don't have Krishna consciousness, right? And so you could ask the same question. You say, the great acharyas, the great spiritual masters, are feeling the pain of people who don't have Krishna. Like, how can they feel the pain if they're merged in transcendental bliss? It's like, but there's space for both. They can exist simultaneously. So yes, Krishna is self-satisfied. He doesn't need anything. At the same time, he needs love. He's addicted to love, can't exist without it. Krishna's weakness is love. He has an addiction for it. So, self-satisfied it's kind of, this is another way of explaining it. In our philosophy, you have two things. You have tattva and rasa. So tattva means philosophy. Tattva means like, let's just look at it. And so in this question, the tattva is Krishna is self-satisfied, right? That's, in other words, let's define God. What is God? Who is God? What are his qualities? Well, one of his qualities, he's self-satisfied. Yeah. So that's tattva, that's the information, that's the, like how you answer your Bhakti Shastri test. Is God self-satisfied or not? You better say yes. If you say no, it's like, philosophically, you're wrong. But according to rasa means relationship, but according to relationship, he's not satisfied. Otherwise, why did he come as Lord Chaitanya? Why is he asking us to go back to Godhead? He misses us. Why is he trying to meet with the gopis and with Radharani? Why is he missing them? Because in rasa, that nourishes the relationship. So yes, in tattva, he's self-satisfied, and in rasa, he's not, because that increases love. So anything which increases love, Krishna will become that, even if it contradicts philosophically who God is, right? Like Mother Yasoda wants to worship, or many women want to worship Krishna as a son. Like in Christianity, God's the Father. But what about you want God as the Son? Okay, so Krishna says, okay, you want me as a son, I'll come as your son. So is God the Father of everyone, or is God the Son of everyone? Well, the tattva is God's the Father. Krishna says that I'm the source of everything. I'm the Pitaham, I'm the Father, Jagato, Mata, Tata, Pitamaha, and I'm also the mother, and I'm also the support, and I'm also the grandfather, and so many verses. Aham Sarvasya Prabhu, I'm the source. So yes, Krishna is the Father. That's the tattva. But the devotee says, Krishna, I would like to worship you as my son. And then Krishna says, okay, I'll become your son. So now Krishna is the son of Mother Yasoda. Is he not the father of creation? He is, but for her, he's the son. So how can he be the son and the father at the same time? One is tattva, one is rasa. Yeah, this is such an interesting topic, right? Because in Judeo-Christian religion, you don't really have these ideas. This concept of rasa is very unique because it's intimate. And then God becomes the servant. Sometimes, you see a picture and Krishna's bowing to Radha, or Krishna's trying to appease Radha, become the servant. Because in love, the relations change, isn't it? That sometimes the male is superior than the female, then the female is mad at the male, and so the male, I'm sorry. Anyway. So the next question, Vaishnavas want to be small servant at the same time do glorious things in service. How do we understand? Yeah, right. We want to do glorious things for two reasons. One, and the main reason, is because there's people who need Krishna consciousness, and the more we can do, then the more people can become Krishna conscious. So that's one reason, right? And another reason is that our spiritual master gives us service. And so we want to please him. And he's happy when we can do things which will spread the Krishna consciousness movement, right? So if you don't have false ego, there's no problem in desiring to do big things. If there's no false ego, because it'll never be about you. It's always about Krishna service. If the false ego is there, then it's a contradiction. I want to do big things. Why? Because I want to be big. I want to be a big devotee. I want to be a big person. I want to be big. So then if you want to be big, and that's why you're doing big things, better not do big things. But we have to do big things, or as big as we can, because people need us. So we have to do it as a tiny servant, humbly. Yeah. Why are you doing this? Doing this because my Guru Maharaj wants me to. How will you be able? How were you successful at it? By his mercy. Why did you do it? I did it to please him. The other answer is, why did you do it? I did it to become the best devotee, to become acknowledged as a great servant or a great donor, or, in the Gita, how Krishna says charity given in different modes. So like, you do something to get recognition. That's pretty much the mode of ignorance. Like bhakti is pure. Like, could you imagine, Hari Bhakti? Somebody's doing something. They're really nice to you, and they're doing something to please you. And you're feeling like, oh, this is nice. What a nice person. But you find out that they're doing it because they want to get in good graces with somebody that likes you, and they want to get a favor from that person. And that's why they're being nice to you. This actually happened to me about 5-6 years ago. There was a devotee, he wanted to marry a woman, And that woman, I guess she was kind of like a Siksha disciple. And so he was really nice to me because he wanted me to like him so she would like him. And she didn't like him anyway. So I want to tell you something. And I said this the other day, and it's such a beautiful thought. And I don't know if you all picked up on it, but your heart is like an altar, right? So I don't know if you all know this, but the altars in the temple are cleaned about 10 times a day, right? Right, Anuradha? It's like you wake the deities up and you clean the altar. And then you do arti, and then you clean the altar. And you do 6, 7 artis a day. And then, yeah, so maybe like 8 times a day, the altar is cleaned. The altar is always meant to be spotless. And if you haven't done it, you should clean the ceiling, the tops of the altar, the domes, like, it should all be spotless. And the idea is, if Krishna is going to sit there, it has to be spotlessly clean, right? So wherever Krishna sits, it should be clean. That's easy to understand, right? You're not going to put. Well, I was in Los Angeles in 1970, and they were installing the deities of Rukmini Dwarkadish. And so they brought the deities and they put them on a platform. And on top, before they put them on, they put a rug on the platform. But Prabhupada saw that the rug was just a rug that everyone had already walked on. And Prabhupada said, you can't put the rug on this platform because that's the altar and everybody stepped on it. Like, we didn't know. Prabhupada was upset. It's got to be clean, right? And then, this is like insider information. I don't know if you ever heard this. When sometimes altars are built in a way that you can dress the deities from the side. They leave space. You don't have to go on the altar. You can do all the dressing from the side. And so here's an altar, and then there's space on either side. But in America, it wasn't like that. So a devotee asked, he was Prabhupada's servant, he asked Prabhupada, like, we're walking on the altar to dress deities. You're walking on Krishna's altar. Can you imagine? That's like, you're sitting on God's throne, kind of like, that's not good. So Prabhupada said, well, after you do that, you should ask for forgiveness. You should ask Krishna, please forgive me for walking on your altar. There's a prayer like that at the, if I made any offenses, but that's very specific. I've walked on your altar. So I don't know where this is said. I don't know where I read this. I read it recently, probably read it many years ago before, but it was just struck me that, so the heart, this is where we want to bring Krishna, right? We want to bring Krishna into our heart. How can Krishna sit in a heart that's dirty? Right? Just as Krishna can't sit anywhere that's dirty. So this statement said, Krishna cannot sit in a heart which is full of pride. And this answers the question as to why is humility important? It's such a simple answer. If anyone ever asks you, why is humility important? Because Krishna cannot sit in a heart which is full of pride. And I think that can be a great impetus for us to become more humble, right? Because I want to connect with Krishna. I want to bring Krishna in my heart. But if Krishna sees within my heart there's all this pride, Krishna will say, nah, I'm not going to go there. I only go where it's clean. And that place is really dirty. And it smells from pride. Do you ever go and, your house, like you smell something, some rotten something that was never thrown out? And that smells horrible. And you kind of just want to turn around and walk out. Well, maybe not your house, but some other place. So Krishna's like, you want me to sit in your heart? It stinks. It's like, just smell, it reeks of pride. So it's a beautiful thought, and it's very direct and clear. Krishna, why is pride bad? Because Krishna can't sit in your heart. So the answer to your question is you can do anything in devotional service, provided your motive is to please Guru and Krishna. It doesn't matter. I would say anything, nothing sinful, of course. But any great service, and if your motive is to please Guru and Krishna, you're good. If your motive in doing something is to get recognition, you're putting yourself in a dangerous position, because if you're successful, you're going to look for that recognition. You're going to want it. You're going to be waiting for it. And that is the wrong mood. So, this idea, I'm going to do this service, I'm going to do this project, devotees will appreciate it, they will praise me, I'll be recognized. Doesn't smell good. Something smells fishy, right? This service is smelling fishy. So you want to monitor yourself. So maybe, Hari Bhakti, you go into that and you think, okay, I'm going to do this service for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna and for the service for the people that it will serve. And that's my only motive. So that's good. You do that. And then the project becomes successful. And when it becomes successful, people start saying, Hari Bhakti, you are the man. You be the man. This is amazing. I didn't know you were so capable. And you're starting to feel like, starting to sit up and, as we say in America, feel your oats, yeah, I am the man. Yeah, you're right. Give me, that's the other side of the coin, that you went into it with the right motive, but unless your heart is free from the desire for pride, when you get glorified, it's going to trigger that pride and it's going to shoot up. So you have to be very careful. You have to be very careful that with whatever you do, you don't allow it to activate that desire. And here's another thing. Why does Krishna not sit in the heart of one who's full of pride? Because pride is directly in competition with Krishna. The desire for pride really is to be competitor of Krishna. All Jai Sri Krishna, we say, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Krishna, right? Pride is not all glories to Krishna. Some glories to Krishna, some glories to me. That's what pride is. So now we're competing. Okay, we've got 100 pounds of glory. How many pounds do I get? I'll give Krishna 80 pounds. Can I get 20? 20 would be good. I'll be happy with 20, right? So I feel good, Pride also is a form of insecurity in that we don't value ourselves. We don't appreciate ourselves enough that we require other people to appreciate it. So it also has a psychological component to it, not just a spiritual problem. For many of us, there's a very strong psychological component. Am I valuable? Do I value myself? If I'm not self-accepting, I need you to tell me something to make me feel good about myself, right? If I'm self-accepting, if I accept myself as I am, I don't need you to say, oh, you're really great. You're really smart. You're really beautiful. You're really talented. I don't need that. So sometimes that desire is there. You go into the service purely, and then the service is successful and people start praising you and you really like it and you feel you need it and so on, because you may be doubting your own self-worth and you need to hear it from others. Does that make sense? Yeah. I have, I just finished this morning. We have self-care affirmations. I'm going to do a record. I don't think I ever did a record. Did I ever do a recording of the self-care affirmations? Because if I did, I don't know where it is. I'm going to look on my other computer. Maybe it's there and I don't know it. But I'm going to do a recording of the self-care affirmations. But this morning, well, the last like 4 days I've been working on this. I've come up with 20 self-compassion and self-acceptance affirmations. So this is one or two or three of the affirmations relate to this. Because if I can accept myself as I am and I don't have to compare myself to others, then, it's just like, this is who I am, You have $100 in the bank, he has $1 million in the bank, that makes you feel poor, right? But if you are self-satisfied and you're okay, it's like, it doesn't make you feel poor or bad, it's just what it is. So like that. It's interesting. Sometimes, like someone writes a book and 100 publishers reject it, right? Someone writes a song and like nothing happens, and then they write another song and nothing happens. Then the third song they write, they put it on YouTube, and the next day there's like 60 million hits. It's like, so now you feel valuable because 60 million people said, I like your song. Whereas before that, you felt like useless because they didn't. But are you any different now? Or, your book, the 101 publisher bought it and it's a bestseller. But before that, you felt useless because we're looking for validation in external success or people's praise. And that's unhealthy because then it causes us to perform for people to get their appreciation. And that's not good. Okay. Elon Chester is the name. Yeah, you got it there. Radharani says, I always wonder how some people criticize other devotees on Facebook, social media, and their chanting does not get disturbed by that. Why only my devotion goes down? How do you know they don't get disturbed? It's the first offense. I just wrote an article about this, about criticism. And no, you can't criticize and it not have effect on you. It's not possible. Like it definitely has an effect. I just wrote this article, and what the article I was saying is that often when people criticize another, they're trying to avoid looking at themselves. And they're trying to blame their failings on another person so they don't have to take responsibility for their own failings. So that's one reason they criticize, or they have a need they're trying to express and they don't know how to express it in a healthy way. They'll criticize like that. So it's, just the fact that someone's doing it, it's already, it's like if you're coughing up, it's like, okay, I'll reframe your question. How is it that some people cough up mucus all day and are choking and have a sore throat and red eyes, but they're fine? No, they're not fine. Those are all symptoms that they're sick. And they can still go to work and function. No, they're sick. So criticism is, someone who's always criticizing, it's a sign of sickness. It's a sign of a problem. And that's going to affect their japa. It's going to affect their life in general. If you find yourself criticizing, it's like you've got some rash on your body. It's like, what did I eat? What did I do? It's a symptom of a problem. See it like that. If you're always criticizing, it's a symptom of a problem. And one of the big problems is I don't want to look at myself. I want to look at other people. If I'm looking at your faults, I don't have to look at mine. Right? I once heard a saying, it was quite interesting. It said, beware of the person who blame, what does it say? beware of the accuser. You're like, you did this, beware of the accuser. It's usually that they did it. And they're trying to push the attention towards someone else rather than towards them. And Radharani, another thing is, if someone is always criticizing, I would feel sorry for them because they're quite miserable. Don't you think? I mean, unless they're criticizing to solve a problem. But if it's just attacking, don't worry. They are disturbed. That's the symptom, they're disturbed. So I have a question. In relation to different advancement of devotees, Kanishta Madhyam Uttama. How can I always see Krishna and truly appreciate all devotees? How should one behave when in association? Yeah, humility. The answer to your question is humility. How should we behave in association? Respectfully. Appreciate other devotees. Try to serve. Try to see the good qualities in others. Try to, if you don't see the good qualities in others, then you don't really benefit from their association, because it's those good qualities that inspire us. Don't be envious of those more advanced. Be happy that they're advanced. Take advantage of their association. Cooperate, work together, all these good things. Valentina says, do I understand correctly that the best way to clean the heart is chanting? At the moment, one cannot chant 16 rounds or more. Are there other instruments to help chant and clean the heart? Yeah, everything cleans the heart. There's 5 things, 5 most important things associating with devotees: hearing, Shastra, chanting, worshiping, deity worship, have some altar, do something, and going to a holy place. Those are the 5 things, the most potent things. One can't chant 16. Well, I'd have to ask the question to you, is it you can't physically chant 16, or you just aren't capable yet spiritually of doing it? Well, that's a question for yourself to answer. But everything you do that's purifying will help your chanting. And sometimes, will come, it's like, Valentina, look at rounds like in 2 ways. Look at it like medicine. Like the doctor said, if you really want to cure this disease and go and run in the next Olympics, you need to take 16 pills a day. All right. Now, if you take 16 pills, are you going to get sick? Are you going to get indigestion? Can you actually stomach it? Can you actually do it? Can you actually do it every day? You ever have a medicine where one day you take the pills, you're fine, and the next day you're sick, like it's too heavy? So maybe you have to lower the dose. So, those are 2 questions to ask yourself. Can I say something about 16 rounds? I'll say 2 things. Don't shoot for it if you can't maintain it, and shoot for it if you can. Because 16 is like the bingo number. When you get there, it's like, bing, ding, 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 ding. Spiritual world opens up. It's like a movie, like the C parts. But, work to get there gradually. It's not a problem if you can't do it then. But at least desire to do it, because Prabhupada gave us that number, and that's like the 16 pills to cure the disease. But then if you, Valentina, you want an inspiration, Prabhupada said at least 16. So Prabhupada's coming from a different perspective. He's coming from a culture where spiritual practice was the most important thing. And we come from a culture where material achievement is the most important thing. So for us, it's like, how do you find time for 16 rounds? In Prabhupada's culture, it's like, you got to force yourself to make time to spend all your time in material because your focus is spiritual. And Prabhupada said his father didn't go to work. Father owned a shop, and he didn't show up at the shop till 12 o'clock because the whole morning he was doing puja, hearing, chanting, and doing puja. And then he'd come home at 6 and do more puja. So that was their life. So our life is so opposite from that. So I think that's part of the problem, which makes it difficult for us. So we're not used to dedicating that much time to like sitting and chanting. And it's like, that's like, I gotta get up and do something, you know. Get me out of here. I gotta, you know, you ever feel like that? You're trying to chant and you feel like, I gotta go out and conquer the world. I gotta go do something. Yeah. I got too many ideas in my head. I've got to write a book. I can't chant, put my beats down. I gotta, you know, do something, isn't it? I have a huge problem. I love to learn. Learning is like, it's not a problem, it just becomes a problem sometimes because it can get in the way of other things I should be doing. So, so just try to understand, we live in a different time and culture, and we're a little bit, you know, affected by that mentality. You know, there was that time in history where spiritual culture was like that, was like, why you're alive, that's what you do. And then maintenance was like, you just somehow maintain yourself. And now it's like, everything's about getting ahead materially. And if you have any time left, you can, you know, do your meditation, you know, 10 minutes a day, right? And now with Facebook and Instagram Reels, you only have to spend 1 minute. So it's like everything's getting condensed. That's my answer for that. Where you get these self-care affirmations, yeah, you'll get them. Don't worry. I have to record them. I haven't done it yet. Maybe today I'll record it. Then you come to japa self-care level 2, and then you'll be on the list to get them. I might put them out. Just hold on. They're really good. Oh my God. Okay, we have to end class. It's time for japa. Thank you for coming. And Hare Krishna to all of you.
Hare Krishna Gurudev, please accept my humble obeisances. Jai Prabhupada.